Malcolm accompanied me to my prenatal checkup when he received another call from his white moonlight. As always, he left me alone in the cold, empty hallway. But this time, I didn't cry. Instead, I calmly took the prenatal report and walked into the operating room. Afterward, I saw the post his white moonlight shared on social media. So, to you, I am the most important after all. The accompanying picture shows Malcolm gently wiping her forehead. The adoration in his eyes, something I could never match. From then on, no matter what excuse Malcolm used to spend time with his white moonlight, I just smiled and let it go, until my birthday, when his white moonlight came knocking at my door. Malcolm gripped my hand with red-rimmed eyes. "Chloe, is your heart made of stone? Why won't you look at me?" Enduring the cramping pain in my abdomen, I watched Malcolm answer the call from his white moonlight with a smile. After hanging up, it was his usual act of glossing over the truth. "Chloe, something urgent came up at the company. I can't stay with you. Take a taxi home after your checkup." He dropped the words and walked out without looking back. In the past, I would have clung to his arm and begged him to stay, but this time, I didn't. I held back my tears as I read the words "threatened miscarriage" on the medical report, then resolutely walked into the operating room. I've lost count of how many times Malcolm has left me behind, but none of that matters anymore. After the surgery, I returned home, weak from the abortion procedure. I buried myself under the covers. I didn't receive a single call from Malcolm all afternoon. He seemed quite at ease. Probably because I've always gone to every prenatal checkup alone, the pain kept me awake, so I scrolled through my social media feed and saw a post from Malcolm's white moonlight. "So, to you, I am the most important one after all." Accompanying the text was a picture of Malcolm gently wiping her forehead with a tender expression, his eyes filled with an adoration I had never seen before. I smiled faintly, set my phone aside, and slept until evening. Malcolm, when he returned, I hazily opened my eyes and saw his broad back standing at the door. I turned over and fell back asleep, only hearing him say one last thing. "Why are you sleeping so early?" When I woke up the next day, the sky was already bright. Due to physical reasons, I didn't prepare breakfast for Malcolm as usual. Seeing that I remained still, he seemed a bit helpless and somewhat hesitant. Perhaps it's true that when people do something they're ashamed of, their conscience always feels a little uneasy, but he still spoke up. "Are you angry because of what happened yesterday? You know, Edith has always been in poor health, and we grew up together. She's sick. And I couldn't rest easy leaving her alone without anyone to take care of her." My tone was somewhat indifferent. "I know, you don't need to explain, but you're clearly angry like this. Chloe, some things really aren't necessary. I'm not angry. Edith, she's all alone, with no one to rely on but me. Can you please stop making a big deal out of nothing? I'm not angry. How many times do I have to say it?" My voice was a bit urgent out of frustration that he thought I was angry, but my expression was unusually calm and serious. "I really am not." After saying that, I lay back down on the bed, closing my eyes. I didn't look at Malcolm again, but even so, I could still feel his eyes fixed on me for a long time, until his phone rang once more. The iron door was slammed shut heavily by Malcolm again, but I had no time to care. I need to take good care of my health, and then do what I want to do. I applied to the photography company in advance for a shoot along the Silk Road. During the 3 years of marriage to Malcolm, I gave up too many of my passions in life, especially photography. My best friend tried to persuade me for a long time. The Silk Road is every photographer's dream, a perfect milestone in life. Is it a pity to give it up for Malcolm? I shook my head with a smile. We're both making efforts for each other, so it's all worth it. Looking back now, I was truly blinded by love. The company replied quickly. Before approving my application, they tentatively asked, "The Silk Road project involves filming along the route, and the trip will last 2 years. If the results are promising, it might even be longer. Do you need to discuss this with your family?" I smiled slightly and said, "No need. I used to refuse long-term shooting assignments without a second thought, afraid that being away for too long would mean being separated from Malcolm for too long, so I always said no. But this time, I was unusually determined. As soon as I recovered physically, I could head straight to the shooting location. I instantly felt much better and immediately shared the news with my best friend Gina. She was once surprised. "You actually gave up love for your ideals. Am I dreaming?" Hearing this, I suddenly felt a bit guilty. Before, Gina went through a lot of connections to secure a spot for me in the photography competition to help me achieve my dream, but at the time, for Malcolm, I stubbornly gave up my chance to participate. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but hug her. "I'm serious this time. I won't sacrifice myself for love anymore." Gina was genuinely happy, but then she turned to look at my stomach. "What about the baby? You're pregnant right now." I held back the sting in my nose. It was a threatened miscarriage. The baby is gone. Her tears suddenly streamed down, and at that moment, I no longer wanted to hold back my emotions. Holding Gina, I cried uncontrollably. We chatted until evening, had dinner, and then took a stroll around the nearby mall before heading home. The room was as dark as usual, but what was different was that Malcolm sat silently on the sofa, the light turned on, and I saw his rare agitation and unease. I paid no attention, thinking it wasn't directed at me. I walked straight back to my room. Malcolm suddenly grabbed me. "Where have you been so late?" I broke free from his restraint. "Just went out for a walk," but his grip did not loosen. "Chloe, don't forget, you're still pregnant. If you go out alone like this and get hurt, what will happen to the baby?" I still struggle to break free, yet my expression remains composed. "Understood, I won't do it again. What exactly do you want me to do to make you believe that Edith and I are just good friends? She's sick. Do you expect me to stand by and watch her suffer alone in the hospital? Chloe, can you please not be like this?" I was somewhat at a loss, but it wasn't enough to stir any ripples in my heart. I spoke calmly. "Malcolm, I've said it before, I don't have the slightest misunderstanding about you and Edith. I believe you're friends, really." I spoke earnestly, but Malcolm grew even more displeased. "Do you think I don't know what's really on your mind? Don't even suggest I'm that kind of person. And Edith certainly isn't either. She's been gentle and considerate since childhood, never one to trouble others lightly. If I hadn't noticed early this time, she definitely wouldn't have reached out to me. Chloe, could you be more understanding? Edith is really nice." I was speechless, not knowing how to express my inner thoughts. In the end, I just smiled and nodded, saying, "Okay, got it." The tone was unusually gentle and calm, without a hint of impatience. Seeing that I truly showed no change in emotion, Malcolm finally let go. He looked at the shopping bag in my hand with a natural confidence. "What did you buy for me this time?" "I knew it. You never come back empty-handed without something for me." He reached out to take it, but I moved the bag aside. "Sorry, there's nothing for you in here. It's just some daily necessities. If you need anything, you can look online." Malcolm's face visibly darkened. I walked into the house without looking back. Malcolm stood there dumbfounded. About 10 minutes later, the door next door was slammed shut. I was sleeping like a log when Malcolm suddenly kicked the door open. The room was dark, so I couldn't see his expression clearly, but the force with which he kicked the door was enough to show his unwillingness. "It's 10 o'clock, and you didn't even ask if I've eaten." I stretched lazily, and my indifferent angered him once again. "Chloe, what exactly do you want? Is this little thing really such a big deal? How long are you going to keep giving me the cold shoulder?" I couldn't help but sneer. To this day, he still thinks I'm giving him the cold shoulder, that I'm making a big deal out of nothing, without a shred of remorse for what is done, but I don't expect him to feel any remorse. I just want to focus on recovering my health. I smiled and said to him, "I'm not." He got worked up again. "But now you're clearly intentionally giving me the cold shoulder because of Edith. You're holding a grudge against me in your heart. Not only do you no longer bother to smile at me, but you don't even offer a single word of concern anymore." Yes, in the past, I used to follow him around everywhere. After work, I would prepare warm tea for him. Before work, I would straighten his suit and tie for him. Even before bed, I would prepare a basin of warm water for him to soak his feet. I was always there with a smile, but how did he respond to me back then? "Chloe, can you stop hovering around me all the time like a nanny? I need space too. I need quiet too. Chloe, don't you get annoyed? Can you stop grinning at me all the time? It's making my skin crawl." Chloe following me endlessly like this, like a clingy shadow, is really annoying. To avoid his continued nagging, I quickly ordered him some takeout on my phone. This time, instead of carefully selecting as I usually do, I just picked whichever place was still open at this hour and could deliver the fastest anything to shut him up. After receiving the takeout, Malcolm's face was still dark, but when a person is hungry, they will always choose to eat first, so while he was eating, I dozed off again. In a daze, I actually heard the sound of a beer can being opened. Malcolm never drinks. When I woke up in the morning, the living room was a complete mess. I counted the liquor bottles on the floor. The number had already exceeded Malcolm's tolerance, but he wasn't there. Perhaps my sudden odd behavior made him uncomfortable, and he ran away from home. I paid him no mind and began studying the filming equipment I would need for my Silk Road project. The old tools were a bit outdated, so I needed to get some new ones. So for several days in a row, I was immersed in planning the Silk Road. I didn't think about Malcolm at all, yet surprisingly, he called me. Seeing his name flashing on the screen, I calmly answered the call. His voice was unusually hoarse. "Chloe, for your birthday this year, shall I take you to the beach to set off fireworks?" To be honest, hearing him say that took me by surprise, because in previous years, he always just bought me a bag to get it over with. even if I begged him in a coquettish manner, "Malcolm, please stay with me. It's only once a year for my birthday. It would mean so much if you were here. I beg you." Malcolm remained unmoved, only offering me superficial kindness. "The company is busy, it's just a birthday, no need to make a big fuss. A gift is a blessing, buy whatever you like. I can't just drop my work for your birthday. Be good." Although I felt uncomfortable inside, seeing how he worked day and night for me, I couldn't bear to be harsh, so every time I chose to compromise, forgive, and forgive again, to the point that in his eyes, my birthday had always just been an ordinary day. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Malcolm's tone was filled with urgency. "Chloe, this time for your birthday, I'll spend it properly with you, okay?" Looking at the thick pile of materials on the table, with the Silk Road trip approaching, "I'm afraid this might be the last time we spend together, a final farewell for us." I nodded in agreement. That day, Malcolm came back very early, carrying all sorts of large and small bags. It was also the first time he didn't let me help, slowly packing everything into the trunk. Along the way, we didn't say much, but I faintly sensed his gaze occasionally drifting toward me. Upon arriving at the destination, Malcolm thoughtfully took off his coat and draped it over me. "There's a breeze by the sea. Be careful not to catch a cold." I didn't refuse. The sea breeze was indeed a bit chilly, and I was wearing little. If I were to be blown by the wind, the Silk Road trip would be delayed again. It was the first time I saw Malcolm set up a tent with my own eyes. We had traveled together before, but these tasks were always done by me, while he stood by taking pictures of the scenery. Even if I couldn't do it, I couldn't bear to let him lift a finger. I followed online installation tutorials, installing and uninstalling over and over, cutting my hands several times. Malcolm would always tease me playfully. "Can't even do it after watching the video. You're hopeless." I used to think he couldn't do these things, that he was just a workaholic who only knew how to handle office tasks. But later, I saw Edith posting beautiful scenic photos on social media, and Malcolm carefully setting up a tent for her and preparing delicious food. Only then did I realize his abilities weren't limited to work. It's just that love can't be divided, and effort can't be applied equally in every situation. "Chloe." Malcolm suddenly spoke up. "What have you been up to these days? Have you missed me?" I was momentarily speechless, unable to come up with a response, but still smiled and played along. "I'm just doing the usual things." Only his words of missing me were left unaddressed. Malcolm stopped what he was doing and turned to look at me. "You seem to have lost weight." This is what I used to say to him often. He rarely noticed the changes in my figure, and cared most about Edith. Edith loses several pounds every time she falls ill. She was already frail to begin with. Why must this illness torment her specifically? Why can't it pick someone else? "You're much stronger than Edith. She's been sickly since she was little. If she were even half as healthy as you, I wouldn't have to worry so much." Every time I heard this, it left a bitter taste in my mouth. And several times I had fierce arguments with Malcolm, but every time he sincerely accuses me, saying I'm heartless, that I'm jealous, that I'm just a typical vinegar jar. How could I be so cruel to a frail and sickly Edith? I care about Malcolm, worried that every argument we have will lead to unfair treatment, to his coldness and increased attention to Edith. So every time I choose to back down, thinking of ways to coax him into not being angry with me, to make him forgive me. But it's this repeated stepping back that has led to Malcolm's indifference toward me. I forced a faint smile. Maybe my digestion hasn't been great lately. Halfway through the birthday celebration, Malcolm hadn't even set off the fireworks yet when Edith's call came through again. He answered without hesitation. I stood in the cold wind watching him, a scene I had experienced countless times, each ending with the same outcome, and indeed, that was the case. My birthday ended as soon as he finished setting up the tent. The reason was Edith was feeling unwell and was standing at our doorstep. Malcolm explained as usual. "Chloe, I'm sorry, Edith is really not feeling well. I promise it's just this once. I'll make it up to you tomorrow for your birthday." I was very calm. "It's okay. It doesn't matter whether we celebrate or not. Just take care of her first. Please don't be mad." "Okay, I promise it's just this once." "How could that be?" "You should go about your business." My rare indifference made Malcolm a bit nervous, but what probably made him even more nervous was Edith. As soon as the car stopped, he immediately rushed into the building unit without a second thought. I had no more expectations of Malcolm, so naturally I wasn't put off by this kind of scene and followed him inside. Edith still had a rosy complexion, no different from a normal person, but the moment she saw me, she fell right into Malcolm's arms. She looked at me with a faint, breathless voice. "Sister-in-law, you won't be angry, will you? I'm really not feeling well. Besides ACI, I truly can't find anyone else to help me." I smiled in response. "How could I not? Taking care of you is only right. Let's hurry to the hospital." any later and it might be too late. My words clearly upset Edith, but before she could speak, Malcolm got angry first. Chloe, don't talk like that, Edith is already feeling terrible. Don't add fuel to the fire and make her even more upset. Look, what else can a dog eat if not that? Eat shit. No matter how sincere a promise is, it becomes fragile in front of Edith. I don't care either. I turned to pull the door open to go in, but Malcolm grabbed me, apologized to Edith, or her condition will get worse. Why should I apologize? What did I do wrong? I turned my head away and took out my keys, ready to insert them into the lock. Malcolm pushed me aside abruptly. I lost my balance, stumbled, and fell to the ground. He didn't seem to expect me to fall, so the moment I fell, he suddenly thought of something and quickly crouched down to help me up. But before his hands could even touch me, Edith burst into tears with a loud wail. She looked at Malcolm with a pitiful expression. "ACI, it hurts so much. Could you help me up first?" Her coquettish demeanor made Malcolm frown involuntarily, and the atmosphere froze in that instant. Yet I didn't feel the slightest bit sad. Malcolm unexpectedly avoided Edith. "Could you stop making a scene? Chloe is pregnant." When his hands rested on my waist, I felt genuine disgust and pushed him away. Malcolm persisted relentlessly. "Let's go to the hospital. What if the baby gets hurt?" I remained calm and composed, no longer willing to tolerate it. "Malcolm, our child has been gone for a long time. I've thought about this countless times, how to tell Malcolm. I just never imagined it would be in this way." Malcolm was momentarily incredulous. He grabbed my hand, his eyes reddening. "Impossible. Chloe, you're lying to me, aren't you?" As soon as he said it, even Malcolm himself laughed. When had I ever lied to him? And how would I dare joke with him about a child? This child came as an unexpected joy, the most beautiful gift in my life. When I first told Malcolm I was pregnant, he was so overjoyed he couldn't sleep. I think that was the only moment he truly savored the joy of becoming a father, because from that day on, he shifted all his attention to Edith, saying, "Edith has a fever and needs someone to take care of her. You don't have morning sickness, so you should be better off than her." But he forgot the doctor's warning. With a septate uterus, the first 3 months are the most prone to miscarriage. I started showing signs of bleeding. But Malcolm thought it was a normal physiological reaction and even believed for a while that I was carrying a boy. He said, "When my mother was pregnant with me, it was the same, and look at me now, I'm perfectly fine, aren't I? But now, the baby is gone. I don't want to argue. I just want to help this unfortunate couple as soon as possible. I'm not lying to you. It was a threatened miscarriage. Right after you left the hospital last time, he was gone." After I finished speaking, I didn't look at Malcolm again, but caught Edith's faint, almost imperceptible smile. Perhaps afraid of being noticed, she quickly suppressed her smile. "Sister-in-law, you won't blame me, will you? My little nephew, may his soul rest in heaven, will surely be reborn into a good life in the next life. Thanks for your kind words. As long as he isn't reborn into your household." Edith's face instantly darkened. But I didn't want to give this scumbag and his mistress any more chances to pester me, so I turned and went inside. I've already wasted too much of my youth on Malcolm. Rather than arguing endlessly, it's better to let go and let them have each other. Since he cares so much about Edith, I'll leave the rest of Malcolm's life to her. I've planned out the entire Silk Road journey and booked my flight for next week. I could have set off earlier, but there's still an important matter to take care of. And the destination has been experiencing continuous rainy days lately, so I had to opt for a flight next week. Malcolm came back while I was sitting on the sofa watching TV, and I didn't even notice that he was completely drenched from the rain. "Chloe," he said awkwardly, turning off the TV as he spoke. And only then did I look up at him. His rain-soaked hair was still dripping, and there were inexplicable red marks around his eyes. This was a rare state for him, and one I had never seen before. "Don't you have anything to say?" His eyes were filled with expectation, but I truly had nothing to say and could only respond by shaking my head. "Why won't you tell me? We're both adults. If you can't even grasp the most basic things about pregnancy, isn't that your child?" "Oh." So he's angry about the child, blaming me for it. But didn't I make myself clear enough? I don't want to waste my breath. Nor do I want him to be convinced that the loss of the child was my fault. I simply take out the prenatal checkup report, black and white on paper, to avoid unnecessary trouble and to lay all the cards on the table. Malcolm's hand trembled uncontrollably as he held the prenatal report, still stubbornly muttering. "This can't be," I said. "Mr. Malcolm, he likes it when I call him that in front of his company subordinates, and it's been a long time since I've called him that, as you said. We're all adults. As time goes by, people change, and many things change too. Even if I don't want this to happen, when it comes down to it, it's something none of us can change." I paused for a moment and continued. "From now on, I won't argue with you over anything, nor will I follow you around like a shadow all day. I'll let you have the life you want, on one condition. Let's set each other free." Malcolm tightened his grip on the report. "What do you mean by that? Are you angry again about me sending Edith off just now, right?" He was unusually anxious. "Chloe, I've told you, Edith and I are just good friends. I admit, I used to like her, but that was in the past, and it's common knowledge, right?" Common knowledge, just this common knowledge is his unique and unconventional care for Edith. I let out a sigh. "I've said it before, I'm not angry about you and Edith, I just think we should reconsider our relationship. It would be a good choice for both of us." "No, I disagree," Malcolm said resolutely, his attitude reminding me of the time when I asked him to introduce our relationship in front of his company subordinates. Back then, Malcolm was just as resolute. "This is the company, not our private world." But how did he introduce Edith when he turned around? "This is my childhood sweetheart, the only one I recognize, to the extent that people in the company still don't know who the real Mrs. is." I calmly placed the divorce agreement in front of Malcolm. "Just sign it, no trouble." Malcolm grabbed my hand with reddened eyes. "Chloe, how can you be so heartless? Is your heart made of stone?" I turned my head away, not wanting to look any longer. Every extra word would only deepen the entanglement. Malcolm grew even more agitated. "Chloe, can't you even look at me now?" His hand, bulging with veins, gripped me painfully, as if trying to find a trace of reluctance and unwillingness to part in my eyes. But now I am more determined than ever. I pried his hand open and resolutely walked away. In this situation, continuing to live under the same roof would only give him false hope about our relationship. I packed a few clothes, didn't listen to what Malcolm had to say, and took a taxi to Gina's place. Upon hearing about my divorce, Gina was unusually surprised, and in that surprise, there was even a hint of excitement. As early as when Edith appeared, Gina had warned me to be cautious, saying it's better to be safe than sorry. Given Malcolm's status as the CEO of a listed company and his past relationship with Edith, it was hard to avoid rekindling old flames. But back then, I didn't care. I was convinced that Malcolm loved me, that I was the only one in his heart, and that he would never leave me. Yet after going through it all, I can't help but admit that what Gina said was right. Now I'm just waiting for him to sign the papers. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll be free to do whatever I want. "Does he know about the child?" I nodded. "That's just as well. A scumbag deserves a trashy woman. They're not even worth pitying in death." At Gina's place that night, my phone kept ringing non-stop. Every message from Malcolm, his missed calls, his unread messages. I won't answer, and he just keeps calling non-stop. I don't know if everyone only feels regret after they've lost something, but I don't care. I casually turned off my phone and slept straight through till morning. When I went out in the morning, I saw Malcolm's car from afar. His lonely figure stood in front of the car, with a small mountain of cigarette butts piled at his feet. When he saw me, he strode over quickly, holding my favorite soup dumplings in his hand. "Chloe, haven't eaten yet, have you?" His tone was unusually gentle. I looked at the dark circles under his eyes, clearly the result of a sleepless night. "No need, I already ate this morning." He pulled out a warm water bottle. "It's getting cold out. Take this with you when you go out, it'll be convenient." This is really rare. In the past, when I had period cramps, my family always kept hot water bottles handy, but in the end, they were all given by Malcolm to Edith. "No need to go through the trouble, I've already bought new ones." Malcolm looked quite disappointed, his hand holding the hot water bottle shrinking back. I didn't want to waste time and quickly changed the subject. "If the document is signed, please contact me as soon as possible." Malcolm swallowed hard, his face showing obvious distress. "Is this really necessary?" I didn't speak, but nodded silently in agreement. The rising sunlight falls at the feet of me and Malcolm, casting two distinct arcs of shadow, much like the relationship between us now. Malcolm looked at me, his lips trembling for a long while, but the words never left his mouth. Interrupted by the ring of a phone, he glanced at the phone, then at me, hesitated for a few seconds, and hung up. I didn't need to guess to know that the call was from Edith, seemingly so ill-timed, yet for me, so perfectly timed. The phone kept ringing, breaking the original silence. I said, "If you have something to do, go ahead and take care of it." Malcolm refused. "Where are you going?" "I'll drive you." "No need, company matters are more important. I'll just take a taxi." Malcolm wouldn't listen. "Nothing's that urgent, I'll drive you." His attitude made me momentarily unsure if this was still Malcolm. Due to the time, it's hard to get a taxi in the suburbs at this hour, so I simply took Malcolm's car. The car, as usual, was filled with the scent of lavender, and I habitually sat in the back seat. Malcolm suddenly stopped me. "Sit in the front." I was speechless for a moment. In the past, He never allowed me to sit in the passenger seat. He said it was a safety hazard and that the back seat was relatively safer. I believed it, but later, he arranged for Edith to sit in the passenger seat, even placing a cushion there specially, saying, "It's cold in the back, it's warmer up front." Meanwhile, I was placed in the chilly back seat. That day, I felt genuinely upset. Afterward, I asked him, "Didn't you say the passenger seat has safety risks? Then why can Edith sit there?" It seems the so-called risk isn't about traffic accidents, it's a special privilege reserved for someone. Malcolm immediately flared up. "Chloe, are you out of your mind? How can you nitpick over a stupid seat? Does it really matter where you sit? Edith and I grew up together. She's not in good health, so of course I need to take extra care of her. You get car sick, what's wrong with sitting in the back?" I didn't follow Malcolm's arrangement and tactfully took a seat in the back of the car. We hardly spoke the whole way, the only sound being Malcolm's phone ringing. His hands on the steering wheel were restless, as if ants were crawling all over him. I smiled and asked him to pull over, lying that I had arrived. Then I watched him disappear wildly at the end of the street. I went to the hospital and, after learning that my body had recovered well, I turned back home. I gathered all my things, big and small, leaving nothing behind, only the diamond ring on my hand, I placed in the most conspicuous spot in the living room. After everything was packed, I received a WeChat message from Edith. It's a picture of Malcolm holding her in his arms, soothing her to sleep. Below it was a line of text, "Malcolm body is very warm, and he also likes my warmth." I suddenly smiled. This was just what I wanted. I was worried that Malcolm wouldn't sign. Without a second thought, I summed it all up with the phrase, "May you have a harmonious union for 100 years. I moved all my luggage to Gina's house and filed a lawsuit with the court. According to Malcolm's actions, which have already caused marital discord, my 2 years on the Silk Road also represent that we will be separated for 2 years, so, even if he doesn't sign, we can proceed with the divorce through legal procedures." That evening, I received another message from Malcolm. "Chloe, I miss you, can you come down and talk with me? But what is there left for us to talk about? Keeping an eye on the pot while eating from the bowl, doesn't he ever get tired?" I didn't reply. He's shouting downstairs again. The sound echoed through the neighborhood, causing dissatisfaction among the surrounding residents. There was no other way. I had to brace myself and go see him. Before I left, Gina slipped a bottle of pepper spray into my pocket and told me she would keep an eye out from upstairs. If Malcolm made any suspicious moves, she would be the first to rush down and take him out. I shook my head helplessly. Given past experiences, this time I listened to her. The October night wind was piercingly cold. Wrapped in a thick coat, I looked at Malcolm standing under the streetlight. He wore only a thin shirt, his hair bathed in the dim yellow light, his eyes appearing especially profound in the glow. When he saw me, he rushed over like a child who had just been given candy. "Chloe, you finally agreed to see me." I didn't even look up. "What's the matter?" He rubbed his hands together, his breath forming clouds in the air. "Come back with me, okay? I've talked to Edith, and we've agreed to set clear boundaries from now on. We won't mess around like before." I held back a laugh. "Your relationship isn't that important to me. It's only natural for good friends to care about each other. I'm not that petty. But the way you're acting shows you do care. You avoid me, you won't come home, and you don't answer my calls. I'm really worried." He grabbed my shoulders. "Chloe, let's not separate, okay? I've already torn up that divorce agreement. Let's start over." He spoke with a serious tone, so serious that his hands were trembling. But I didn't take in a single word. I pushed his hand away. "Edith, what about her? If you're not around, what will she do? She could go see a doctor. It's not like I'm the only one in the world." How laughable. If these words had been spoken just a month ago, I would have been overjoyed, throwing myself into his arms, moved to tears. But now, take good care of Edith. Without you, she would die. My calm words exploded like a bomb in the air, adding a touch of chill to this dark and silent October night. Malcolm cried. It was the first time I had seen him shed tears because of me. No, I couldn't be sure whether he wept out of realization, or because of my departure. Men still possess possessiveness, and people, dependency and habit. I turned and left without looking back at Malcolm, yet he screamed like a madman behind me. "I won't be separated from you." Back in the room, I sent a message to Edith, a photo of Malcolm standing downstairs. Of course, I wasn't trying to show off. I just wanted her to call Malcolm back. In his current state, I was really worried he'd spend another night downstairs, which would delay my flight tomorrow. Edith replied quickly, and even through the screen, I could sense the jealousy. "Thanks for the heads up." I turned off the lights and waited until Malcolm left after receiving Edith's call before I could finally rest easy and fall asleep. Early the next morning, I went out with Gina. We shopped at the mall until noon. And my phone kept ringing non-stop. I didn't check any of the messages. I knew it was Malcolm. When I left, I specifically told the doorman that if someone asked for Chloe, please tell them, I'm not here. I took the flight to the Silk Road as planned. The phone was turned off, and by evening, my phone was so bombarded with calls and messages from Malcolm that it started to lag. After a long pause, a few large words remained on the screen. Chloe, I was wrong. I ignored it and clicked delete directly. Messages like these are nothing but spam to me. They take up space and memory. I completely immersed myself in filming the Silk Road, from the Mogaro caves to the desert wonders, and then to the Gobi Desert. I enjoyed the joy and pleasure that photography brought me. I made many Tibetan friends and photography enthusiasts, and together we completed the filming of the Hashi Corridor. During this time, I almost completely forgot about Malcolm. Since I changed my phone number and deactivated my previous WeChat account, I hardly receive any news about Malcolm. I only occasionally make a phone call to Gina in my free time. Chloe, did you know, Edith played Malcolm? She has a boyfriend abroad and only came back out of spite. Her boyfriend found out about her affair with Malcolm, beat him up, and sent him to the hospital. Just thinking about it feels so satisfying. Yeah. That really is satisfying, the most explosive news I've heard since I left. Gina also said that after I left, Malcolm stayed outside her building for 3 days and 3 nights, insisting on seeing me no matter what. Upon hearing that I had left, he broke down crying in his car like a madman, looking utterly pathetic. If it weren't for the neighbors calling the police, he would have almost been mistaken for a homeless mental patient. I just smiled faintly upon hearing this. In the past, his affairs were of utmost importance to me, but now, they have nothing to do with me. 2 years later, I finished photographing the Silk Road as promised, and as I wished, my case was heard in court. Malcolm and I split the property equally. My work even became an overnight sensation in the photography world. At the photography exhibition, I paused in front of my work on the Hashi Corridor. A familiar face suddenly appeared reflected in the glass window. Looking closely, it didn't seem like Malcolm at all, yet it was unmistakably Malcolm. His hair was disheveled, his rough face no longer bore any trace of its former handsomeness. When he saw me, he averted his gaze. But I clearly saw tears glistening in his eyes. Gina patted my arm. Edith ran off with someone and took all his money. Now he's practically homeless. I didn't say anything. Gina suddenly jumped in front of me. You're not going to soften up and get back together with him, are you? I laughed and gave her a push. What are you thinking? The next Silk Road trip is coming up, and I'm about to leave again soon. I turned to look at that glass door, leaving behind only a distant, lonely figure fading away. Story 2. Nick and I grew up together since childhood. When I found out his family had gone bankrupt, I went home to my parents first, begging them to help Nick pay off his debts. But my mother set a condition: I'll save Nick, but first you have to tell him that it's our family that's bankrupt. This is my mother's non-negotiable demand, so I have no choice but to comply. When the news came, Nick was still drinking with friends. Taylor family has gone bankrupt. I can give Ivy a legitimate status. In this world, even the Taylor family can go bankrupt. What does Jocelyn Taylor have to show off about? When the time comes, she'll still kneel before Nick and wag her tail for money. He didn't know I hadn't hung up yet. I heard every single word. My family is bankrupt. I told Nick about the family's bankruptcy. My mom wanted to see how he would react, so she specifically asked me to make a video call to tell him. I turned on the speaker so my mom could listen in. Nick visibly froze for a moment. He repeated in disbelief, "Your family is bankrupt." The Taylor family is one of the most prominent families in City J. With 3 generations of business heritage, their commercial ventures not only thrive domestically but also extend nationwide. Nick looked grave, his handsome face clouded with seriousness. "Jocelyn, don't panic, let me think of a way to help you." Nick's words instantly silenced the private room. No one dared to speak, interrupting Nick's conversation. The family that rivals the Taylors in power is the Prescotts, but the ones who truly went bankrupt are the Prescotts. The Prescott family parents have already gone abroad to raise funds and seek refuge. This matter has never been communicated to Nick. I glanced at my mom, and a gratified smile spread across her face. A wave of warmth also washed over my heart. Nick and I grew up together since childhood. I guessed he wasn't a heartless or ungrateful person. I pursed my lips. "Nick, you're the only one I have now. My family has been keeping this hidden, and it hasn't hit the financial news yet. My parents are still trying to figure things out, but we're terrified that once it makes the headlines, all our creditors will come knocking, demanding their payments." Nick comforted me in a low voice. "Jocelyn, I'm your boyfriend. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Don't worry, I'll figure something out for you. I'm a bit busy right now. Can we discuss it tomorrow when I come to see you?" Hearing Nick's reassurance, I suddenly felt a wave of relief in my heart. Nick has passed my mom's test of character this time. The matter of his family's bankruptcy, the Taylor family will definitely help to the end. Helping him make a comeback won't be a problem when the time comes. I didn't hang up the phone and proactively looked at my mom. I originally wanted my mom to give Nick a heads up. On Nick's end, it suddenly became noisy and chaotic, as if in a private room at a bar. A woman's coquettish voice came through the phone. "Nick, I want to sit in your lap." My heart tightened, and I instinctively glanced at the phone screen. The screen was completely dark. Only the voice on the other end of the phone could be heard. Apparently Nick thought I had hung up the phone. The smile at the corner of my mother's mouth gradually faded as she took a light sip of her coffee. The sound came incessantly. "Nick's lap is a place someone like you can sit in. Even the bankrupt Taylor family's young lady doesn't sit in his lap. Who do you think you are, exactly? Nick's lap is reserved only for Ivy alone." I clenched my fist, my chest feeling terribly heavy. Just as I was about to hang up the phone, my mom snatched it away. She took my phone and placed it on the table, making me listen. A familiar voice rang out. "The Taylor family is bankrupt, so I can finally give Ivy a legitimate status," followed by a burst of laughter. "Jocelyn isn't worthy of Nick, if it weren't for her impressive family background. Who would want to marry such an affected young lady like her? Ivy is independent and resilient. Isn't that exactly the kind of person Nick likes the most? Even such a large family can go bankrupt. The world is really tough to get by in. Nick, we'll be relying on you from now on." The piercing voice echoed over and over, like a merciless sword stabbing through my heart. My eyes ached unbearably, tears welling up and swirling in their sockets. I lowered my head in embarrassment. Not wanting my mother to see me in this state, I proudly and confidently believed Nick was not that kind of person. After the Prescott family encountered trouble, I was willing to empty all my bank accounts to save them. But reality slapped me hard in the face. That slap hurt me terribly. Ivy is the roommate I get along with best. She comes from a troubled family and lacks parental love. I often invite her to my home and take her out to have fun with Nick and me. Nick always complained in front of me, saying she was foolish. "Jocelyn, she can't even shoot an arrow. Why bring her along to get in the way? You may be rich, but you're not running a charity. Be careful she doesn't suck you dry." Nick reminded me more than once. Every time I tell him Ivy is not that kind of person, I was so confident. To the point of foolishness. Whenever he sees Ivy, Nick always looks impatient, as if he's looking at the most detestable person in the world. But only now do I realize the hidden affection beneath this dislike. After hanging up the phone, my mom told me to break up with Nick. I stubbornly insisted on making things clear with Nick. After all, I was the one who deceived him in the first place. There must be a beginning and an end, a resolution. I waited for Nick all night in the villa. He only returned reeking of alcohol. The moment he saw me, a flicker of clarity appeared in his eyes. Nick narrowed his eyes and took the initiative to hold my hand. He pulled me and made me sit down. "Jocelyn, I've been thinking all night. I kept thinking about how we've been childhood friends for so many years. If something happened to my family, you would definitely help me. But a person's ability is limited. You also know that in wealthy families, heirs like us who haven't yet taken over don't have much power. Taylor family has been in business for 3 generations and still went bankrupt. Even if Prescott family gave everything they had, they couldn't save you. Jocelyn, you understand me, don't you? I can't drag the Prescott family down and let both great families be buried in this era." I quietly lowered my head, my questioning gaze fixed on him. The bitterness in my heart was nearly overflowing. Tears were about to fall, but I held them back forcefully. "You don't want to help me, do you?" Nick explained urgently. "It's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't." As if in extreme pain, he covered his face in anguish. "I've spoken with my parents, and they said we should put our engagement on hold for now. For now, you and I should keep our distance to avoid dragging the Prescott family into the spotlight." "Nonsense, Mrs. Kai would never call him. They are currently abroad dealing with bankruptcy matters, thinking there's a chance to salvage the situation. The Prescott family didn't tell Nick about the bankruptcy. He just used his parents as a shield to brush me off. I can't believe it. Our feelings from childhood to now are so fragile. I tried my best to salvage it. Nick, what about me? My family went bankrupt, but I'm still here. Are you really not even willing to try for me?" Nick looked helpless. "Jocelyn, it's not that I'm not trying, it's just pointless. The Taylor family had such a huge business and still went bankrupt. Even if the entire cash flow of the Prescott family were invested, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack, utterly meaningless." I choked up and asked him, "Does it mean we shouldn't save it just because it's meaningless? Does it mean we can give up just because it's meaningless? Should we just stand by and watch the hard work of 3 generations go down the drain?" Nick seemed to laugh at my foolishness. He was terrifyingly calm. Otherwise, what, Jocelyn? Do you know what bankruptcy means? Bankruptcy is like death, there's no coming back from it in this lifetime. My tears fell silently. I turned my head away and said coldly, since Aunt Kai doesn't agree, why don't you give her a call first and ask for their opinion, having grown up together all these years? I want to leave Nick a way out. I think he definitely hasn't called the Prescott family's parents. Nick is the only son in the family, spoiled and pampered. He moved out in a fit of anger with his family, just waiting for his family to call and make peace. Otherwise, he would never admit his mistake. But who would have thought that Nick mistook my persistence for pestering? Jocelyn, don't you believe me? Do I have any reason to lie to you about something like this? His face turned cold. My mother is very busy and doesn't have time to deal with this kind of thing. I never saw you so persistent before. What? Did you go bankrupt and think I'm the only connection you can latch onto? I gave him the chance to know the truth himself, but he didn't want it. In that case, I have nothing more to say. I took a deep breath, holding back my temper, and said, I understand what you mean. This villa is my gift to you. Consider it a parting gift as we go our separate ways. Nick sneered coldly. Jocelyn, you're already bankrupt yet still acting generous. Don't worry. I won't freeload. Once my mom begs me to come back, I'll give you the apartment. But until then, you should move out first. Ivy is coming to stay. Ivy found a job nearby and can't afford rent, so I'm letting her stay here. I stared at him blankly, asking a question I already knew the answer to. Isn't she the one you hate the most? Hearing this, Nick looked a bit impatient. Jocelyn, your family is bankrupt now. Who I hate or like is my own business. Before, it was out of respect for both families, but now there's no need to meddle in my affairs. He urged, hurry up and leave. I'm having friends over for a party. I was packing my personal belongings in the room. Hearing the commotion outside, Nick's rowdy friends had all arrived. Among them was also Ivy. Ivy with long, straight black hair, wearing a little white dress, her makeup-free face glowing with a hint of rosy blush. Exuding an outstanding aura, innocent yet with the maturity of a grown woman. As soon as she arrived, she instantly became the center of attention. Nick acted as if no one else was around, reaching out to wrap his arm around her slender waist. Friends around them began to tease them. Ivy, you finally came. If you hadn't shown up, Nick would have missed you to death. Compared to Jocelyn, Ivy is more like a young lady from a wealthy family. Jocelyn is spoiled and arrogant. Utterly lawless from being pampered at home. Has she finally learned her lesson after going bankrupt? Jocelyn isn't even worth one of Ivy's fingers. Otherwise, how could Nick have taken a liking to her? I clenched my fingers, listening to their conversation. These people really know how to change their expressions. Before, who wouldn't greet me with a smile, they all addressed me respectfully as Jocelyn, treating me like a revered ancestor. Besides, the whole world knows Nick likes Ivy. Only I was kept in the dark. Ivy's voice came from beside my ear. How is Jocelyn doing now? Nick, Jocelyn and I are good friends. You must help her. Upon hearing this, Nick let out a scornful laugh. Aren't you jealous that I'm helping her? Ivy paused, her face instantly flushing red. She lowered her head and leaned against Nick's shoulder. The two of them used me as a tool for flirting to deepen their relationship. Seeing Ivy shy, everyone teased together. The goddess is indeed a goddess. Even her shyness looks so beautiful. Actually, Jocelyn is also very pretty, with a charming, delicate vibe of a rich young lady. Jocelyn is now broke as hell, itching to sell herself at a nightclub. A rich young lady. If she's a lady, I'll wash my hair standing on my head. Okay. As soon as I finished speaking, I wheeled my suitcase out. I stood upstairs, watching them quietly. At this moment, everyone fell silent. Ivy held Nick tightly, shrinking back fearfully as if someone had wronged her. I came down with my luggage. There came the sound of everyone's laughter. Nick, Jocelyn can actually be in such a sorry state. Don't you go soft and take back all the luxury goods you gave her, or she might just sell them off. Jocelyn, you're not up there secretly taking Nick's things, are you? Nick walked toward me step by step. His arrogant gaze scrutinized me. Cold and unfamiliar, as if looking at an outsider. Before he could speak, someone suggested, Jocelyn, open the suitcase and let us check it. Exactly, so no one who's desperate for money can take Nick's things. When they tried to snatch my suitcase, I immediately protected it. Everything I took is my own. It has nothing to do with Nick. They snatched it without even listening. Just like robbers, I couldn't hold my ground against 4 or 5 people all by myself. I thought about the bond Nick and I had shared since childhood. He would help me one more time. When I turned to Nick for help, Nick, say something. Nick curled his lips slightly, calmly watching me being bullied. Nick, you think so too, right? I angrily flung the suitcase away. The items in the suitcase were scattered all over the floor. Even Nick's music box, the one he gave me when he was 10 years old, was shattered. Nick's eyes flickered, and he instinctively reached out to pick it up. But he restrained himself. He said, "Jocelyn, you clearly know what's valuable, yet you took the most worthless thing. How pathetic." There was nothing in the suitcase, only my clothes and the gifts I once gave to Nick, which I'm now taking back. Only after watching me get bullied did Ivy hypocritically walk over. "Jocelyn, I'm sorry, they were just teasing you, don't take it seriously." I shook her off. I packed up a few things and turned to leave, before even reaching the main gate. They were stopped by law enforcement officers who had just returned. "Is this the residence of Nick Kai? They're here to seal it up already." That was fast. It seems the Prescott family couldn't raise the funds from abroad and have gone completely bankrupt. I'm afraid the situation is beyond redemption. Hearing the commotion outside, everyone came out. The first to emerge was Nick. Seeing that it was the court officials, Nick blamed me immediately. "Jocelyn, look at the mess you've made now. You've even drawn the attention of the court officials." Ivy held his hand and pleaded, "Nick, please help Jocelyn. What if she gets taken away?" As soon as the words were spoken, a response followed, "Just let them take her away. The Taylor family holds half the sky in Kyoto, so it's no surprise if they get taken away. Hurry up and arrest Jocelyn. The one drowning in debt and bankruptcy is Jocelyn." The staff member stood in front of Nick and flashed their work badge. "Hello, Mr. Kai. The Shannon Villa where you currently reside has been sealed off. Please pack your personal belongings and leave immediately." These words felt like an invisible slap Nick across the face. Nick instantly changed his expression. Everyone's expression changed drastically. The teasing and mocking voices abruptly ceased. Nick looked stern and questioned, "Are you mistaken?" The staff didn't give him a chance to speak. All are equal before the law, even if he was once a cold and noble young master. So what? When all the facilities in the villa were sealed off, Nick finally realized that the villa had truly been seized. Ivy stood by his side, her face full of concern. "Nick, what's going on? It's clearly Jocelyn's family that went bankrupt, so why is your house being seized?" No one dared to speak, afraid of Nick's bad temper, but everyone had long been suspicious. Nick frowned slightly. His deep and calm gaze falling on me, he strode towards me with swift steps. "Jocelyn, you don't have to lie to me just to make me feel better. Is this really necessary?" I was confused. "What are you talking about?" Nick scoffed coldly. "Playing deaf and dumb? Do you think you can fool me like that? This villa was bought for me by you to appease me after we had a fight. You kept saying the property was transferred to my name, but you've been lying to me all along, haven't you?" I'm used to casually giving things away, so I really have no memory of this matter. However, hearing Nick say that reminds me, after I transfer ownership to Nick, all the properties under his name will be frozen. What a pity for this house. I'll just buy another one next door another day. Hearing Nick's explanation, Ivy's expression visibly relaxed. Everyone chimed in agreement. I knew there was no way they'd seize Nick's house. It turns out it was Jocelyn's all along. Jocelyn acts all day like she's so fond of Nick, but in the end, she even had to resort to deception just to give him a house. If you're going to seal her house, I have nothing to say. Nick, why don't you just go live in your luxurious mansion instead of putting up with this humiliation? Nick glanced at the villa and nodded faintly. "Jocelyn, I won't bother with such a trivial matter this time. Don't try to play tricks on me again." I tightened my grip on the suitcase and glanced at him. "Nick, you really let me down." Upon learning that his family had gone bankrupt, I was so anxious that I broke out in a cold sweat all over, crying and begging my mother to save him. If it weren't for my mother coming up with this plan, I wouldn't have seen Nick's true character. I'm really curious to see what it would be like if it were the Prescott family that went bankrupt. The expression on his face would be absolutely priceless. After returning, I threw away all the memories about Nick. Nick and I had been together for over a decade, never once separated. Even when he was with me and occasionally threw a small tantrum, I could always endure it. My mom said, "He is the only heir of the Prescott family, doted on and cherished by the Prescott family, so it's only natural for him to be proud and willful." So, I always put aside my temper and pride to coax him. But at some point, I forgot, I am also the only daughter in 3 generations of the Taylor family. I was doted on by my uncles and enjoyed the pampering of my family. Only in front of Nick did I have to endure it again and again. My mom was worried that I was in a bad mood. These past couple of days, she has been coaxing me to sleep. I said to my mom, "Mom, I don't like Nick anymore." My mom kissed my cheek. "Jocelyn, you lost the moment you lost yourself in this relationship. You and Nick have been childhood friends all these years, and losing him is no different from losing a family member. I allow you to grieve, but no more than 3 days, okay? Otherwise, both Dad and I will be heartbroken." I buried my face in her embrace. letting my tears fall freely. Thank you, Mom. But just when I truly wanted to let go, I received Nick's text message. Nick, Jocelyn, Nick is drunk and making a fuss, insisting on seeing you. The address is at Midnight Bar. This is probably Nick's friend sending a message using his phone. After thinking it over, I still feel like going to check it out. I want to see Nick's antics for myself. As soon as I arrived, Nick hugged me excitedly. Just like before, his head was buried in my shoulder, and I couldn't push him away. I looked up and glanced at Ivy. Ivy stood there awkwardly, reaching out several times to pull Nick away, only to be pushed aside by her. Nick, have you had enough of this? Nick squinted and glanced at me. Jocelyn, the Taylor family has suffered such a great disaster. Our families have been close for 2 generations, so why didn't the Taylors think to ask the Prescotts for help? Instead, it was you who told me. During this time, Nick must have noticed something was wrong. All his assets have been seized. I'm afraid there's not even a place to live now, presumably. The Prescott family parents haven't contacted him to this day. Nick now only has suspicions, but cannot be certain. A trace of panic stirs within him, threatening to roar and break through like a wild beast. It's only a matter of time, however. Nick, as long as he maintains a calm and composed appearance during this time, no one will notice anything amiss. I blinked. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm not going to tell Nick in person. It'll be more fun to let him figure it out bit by bit. Just as Nick was about to press me further, a sudden phone ringtone cut in. Following the sound, I saw Ivy holding her phone and walking out. After finishing the phone call, she returned with a lost and helpless expression on her face. She choked back a sob, her eyes reddening. Nick, hearing her broken cry, Nick paused slightly. Then, he quickly stood up. Nick hurried over to Ivy and asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" Ivy lowered her head, tears streaming down. "Nick, there's something I've never told you. This year, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. The doctor just issued a critical condition notice, saying she needs surgery as soon as possible. But I don't have the money." Nick frowned slightly and asked her in a low voice, "How much do you need?" 200,000. So it was just 200,000. This amount used to be less than what Nick would squander in a single night. Now, he ought to be tearing his hair out over this mere 200,000. Ivy clutched Nick's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Nick, I beg you, you must help me. I can kneel for you. As long as you're willing to save my mother, I'll do anything." With that, Ivy prepared to kneel down. Seeing her like this, Nick immediately held her hand. "Ivy, what are you doing? It's just 200,000. Right, I'll give it to you." Ivy nodded with a sob, her eyes filled with joy. Nick looked at me first. "Jocelyn, Ivy is your best friend. Lend her 200,000 first." I spread my hands and said helplessly, "Nick, you know my family is bankrupt. I can't come up with the money." I asked knowingly. Nick has no money in his account. Nick's bank cards have all been suspended, so of course he can't come up with a single cent. His expression was cold, a hint of chill gleaming in his eyes. Then, he looked at his friend beside him. "Lend me some money." These so-called friends of his were all useless when it really mattered. "Nick, I don't have any money either. I just had a fight with my family a few days ago. I'm just like you now. My family has cut off my card, and it's really annoying, seeing that none of them were willing to lend money." Nick had a flash of embarrassment on his face. He said with feigned calmness, "Ivy, stop crying. I'll figure out a way for you. It's only 200,000. I thought Nick would come up with some plan. Unexpectedly, he actually went to the pawn shop and sold the piece jade that Grandma Kai had given him. The piece jade was crystal clear, pure and flawless, a fine piece of jade without any impurities. This pawn shop is my family's. When I saw the jade carved with Nick's name, I couldn't help but smile. "Nick, it's truly disheartening." Before passing away, Grandma Kai held his hand and said, "Nick, keep it with you. Grandma will watch over you from heaven. As long as it's with you, Grandma is with you." I remember Ivy once mentioned that her mother had passed away and her father had remarried, but this deceased mother has come back to life. I'll have someone investigate Ivy's situation. Ivy is definitely not simple. I haven't been in touch with Nick for a while. His parents are both abroad hiding from debts and dare not return to the country. Fortunately, Nick has been well protected since childhood. He rarely appears in the media, therefore. The debt collectors couldn't find him for a while. During my studies, my supervisor recommended that I study abroad. I followed my supervisor's arrangement and planned to go abroad. During the formalities, my mom held a small gathering for me at the hotel. The guest list was filled with socialites, wealthy elites, and daughters of prominent families, almost covering all the affluent circles of the capital. Just before leaving, I wanted to catch up with them briefly. During the conversation, I saw Nick and Ivy walk in together. When the Song family's daughter, Song Ci, saw this, she couldn't help but frown. "Jocelyn, Isn't that the down-and-out young master from the Prescott family after they went bankrupt? It's him. He hurt Jocelyn so deeply back then, and he still has the nerve to show up here. Jocelyn, I told you back then not to get too close to Ivy. Now you see, this woman is clearly not simple, she's on a whole different level. I calmly took a sip of red wine. We've come to this point all thanks to Nick. I thought my mom had invited Nick over, but it turned out he was here to collect money. Nick went to find the lobby manager. The manager brought him before me. MS. Jocelyn, Nick is going to withdraw $1 million from the restaurant. $1 million is half a month's revenue for the hotel. If he suddenly withdraws such a large amount, the manager would definitely need to ask for my opinion first. I frowned and couldn't help but ask. Have you spent all your money? Ping jade is extremely valuable. Even if pawned, it would be worth at least several million. And it's all been squandered in just this short month. I glanced at Ivy and immediately smiled knowingly. Could it be that this MS, Ivy needs money again? Seeing me mention her, Nick immediately pulled Ivy behind him. His face turned cold. It's none of your business, Jocelyn. Once my parents come back, the financial crisis will be resolved. He grew impatient and urged, Manager Lin, what's the matter with you? Why ask Jocelyn about getting money? Jocelyn is already bankrupt, what does it have to do with her? As soon as these words were spoken, Song Ci beside me burst out laughing. Nick, how come I never realized you were so naive before? Do you still think this restaurant belongs to your Kai group? Nick belatedly realized something was wrong. His expression turned stern, and his entire body stiffened. Jocelyn, have you been lying to me all along? He asked in disbelief. Don't tell me you've acquired this restaurant. As soon as these words were spoken, Ivy's face suddenly changed, her gaze swept over me, and she said anxiously, Nick, what nonsense are you talking? Taylor's family went bankrupt long ago. How could they possibly still make an acquisition? Ivy simply didn't believe it. She pursed her lips and said urgently, Nick, don't worry about him, let's just take the money. After all, this is your family's business, it's not illegal for you to take the money. With that, Ivy turned and headed toward the front desk. I was stopped by Manager Lin. Miss, please speak to my boss first. Jocelyn, forcibly taking money is robbery. We can handle this by calling the police. I stood up and walked straight over to them. I forgot to tell you, I've acquired this hotel. Instantly, Ivy changed her expression. She looked at me in disbelief. Then, she turned her gaze to Nick. Absolutely not. Ivy simply didn't believe it. As if infuriated, she exclaimed angrily, Jocelyn, is bankruptcy something to be mentioned so casually? I've never seen anyone curse themselves like this. Nick remained silent. He clenched his fists and said coldly, I'm going to call my parents. The phone rang for a long time with no answer. The Prescott family's parents now simply dare not answer the phone, afraid that someone might uncover their whereabouts. I waved my hand, signaling Manager Lin to turn on the display screen. On the large screen, financial news about the Prescott family's bankruptcy was broadcast, playing on a loop right in front of them. Instantly, everyone was stunned. The Prescott family has actually gone bankrupt, don't you all know yet? The financial news updated at midnight. Do you even go online? Oh my god, Nick still dares to come here. Isn't he just asking for humiliation? Does a place like this even deserve the likes of them? Get out of here now. Nick suddenly clenched his hand, as if provoked. His former cold arrogance vanished completely, leaving only undisguised anger. Furious, he retorted, Jocelyn, did you know all along? Even with the facts right before her eyes, Ivy still refused to believe it. How is this possible? Wasn't it Jocelyn who went bankrupt? Could there be a mistake? I smiled faintly. Of course it's not me, it's Nick. Nick had long noticed it, but his heart refused to admit it. The Prescott family had always been at the peak of prosperity. Apart from the Taylor family, it was an unrivaled great family. Even in Kyoto, it would collapse and crumble so easily. No one would believe it. Nick, the Prescott family has been in a state of loss for 2 years. Uncle Kai always thought they could turn it around, but with the rise of new industries, the company's profits have become increasingly sluggish, and it's even hard to pay the employees' salaries on time. You should know, the Prescott family is just like now, maintaining a facade of glory, but in reality, it's completely rotten. The Prescott family's collapse didn't happen overnight. It was the losses accumulated day by day that led to the bankruptcy. Nick clenched his fist, glaring at me. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I immediately smiled. If I had told you in advance, would things have escalated to this point? Nick flushed with anger and humiliation. Jocelyn, you set me up. How interesting. Are you even worth my scheming now? The one truly scheming against him isn't me, but this lady beside him, Ivy. How pitiful, already bankrupt, and still being deceived by a woman. I showed a look of pity and shook my head slightly. Don't put it so harshly, Nick. Why don't you open your eyes and take a good look at this lady beside you, Ivy? I scrutinized Ivy with a meaningful smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Nick gradually sensed that something was wrong. He knew I wouldn't say something like that for no reason. Do you know something? I blinked my eyes, feigning innocence. You'd better ask Ivy yourself. Song Ci beside me is quite the quick talker. What else could it be? You've been fooled by this woman. Nick's face suddenly changed. One blow after another caused Nick's face to gradually lose its color, turning as pale as paper. Ivy denied immediately. What nonsense are you talking? What did I deceive Nick about? We are truly in love. Nick frowned, his scrutinizing gaze fixed on her. Ivy, what exactly are you hiding from me? She looked nervous and said pitifully, Nick, believe me, I've never lied to you. It's all Jocelyn's nonsense, trying to break us apart. I couldn't help but smile. Your mother has passed away. And you hired an actress to impersonate your mother to swindle Nick's money for her and her boyfriend to spend. In the end, Nick actually became the other woman. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was instantly shocked. This was even more shocking than hearing that the Prescott family had gone bankrupt. Who doesn't know that the young master of the Prescott family is as pure as the breeze and bright as the moon, aloof and indifferent? Now, to think he's been played by a woman and turned into the other man. Oh my God, Nick is so love-struck. He actually dares to trust a woman like that. Nick is really something. Turning down a wealthy heiress only to fall for a roadside flower. Haha, what Prescott family young master? He's nothing but a down-and-out loser. Nick refused to believe it. Even the woman he loved most had approached him for another man, only wanting his money, with bloodshot eyes. He stared unblinkingly at Ivy with a suspicious gaze. Is what she said true? Ivy was terrified to the extreme. She forced an explanation with a trembling voice. Of course not. Jocelyn is just jealous of our relationship. After saying this, Ivy raised her hand in a furious rage, intending to slap me. I swiftly grabbed her wrist. Ivy, it won't be fun if we start fighting. Jocelyn, what gives you the right to ruin my relationship with Nick? What, are you still hung up on Nick? Too bad he doesn't like you at all. I released her and said softly, on what grounds? On the grounds that I have evidence. Ivy, who had been furious just moments before, Ivy felt as if she had been doused with a bucket of cold water in public. Her face instantly darkened, and her eyes were filled with panic. She looked at Nick in a fluster. Nick, don't believe her. But Nick didn't believe her at all now. His voice was hoarse, his tone turning bitterly cold. Where's the evidence? I hired a private investigator to look into Ivy's affairs. I found out she was dating a broke guy. The two of them specifically targeted rich second-generation heirs, scamming them out of money before breaking up due to relationship issues. As a result, they made a fortune. The detective deliberately took an intimate photo of the two and sent it to me. I glanced at Ivy. Ivy didn't want to expose the matter in public. Tears welled in her eyes as she pleaded in a trembling voice. Jocelyn, I beg you. Don't make me lose face. I'll break up with Nick. That's all. I'll give him back to you. Nick's eyes grew increasingly red. He looked at Ivy in disbelief, hardly able to believe that this woman had been deceiving him all along. Before Nick could speak, the large screen suddenly lit up. Everyone turned their eyes to the screen in unison. On the screen appeared a photo of Ivy embracing and kissing a man like a delicate woman. It was like an invisible slap, striking Nick hard across the face. Each one stung Nick's eyes. The crowd around grew louder with discussion. Nick has a green pasture growing on his head. Could a man really let his girlfriend sell her body for money, deceiving others to swindle wealth? Fortunately, Jocelyn left those two evil spirits, or who knows how much she would have suffered. I glanced at Song Ci, who shook my phone with a smug smile. Turns out, she had taken my phone to cast the screen. What bad luck. Ivy pleaded to the wrong person. Ivy wept with pear blossoms drenched in rain, pleading with him desperately. Nick, listen to me. None of this is real. I beg you. Please don't believe it. Okay. She cried as if her heart were breaking, as though someone had wronged her terribly. Nick's mind went blank, completely unable to think. He shoved Ivy away fiercely and roared. Then tell me, what is real? All this time we've been together, you've been using all kinds of excuses to swindle money from me, saying you needed to buy a bag, that your mom was hospitalized, that your dad got injured on a construction site. I believed you again and again out of pity and sympathy. He took a deep breath, suppressing the endless anger in his heart. Ivy, the money you owe me. I demand you repay it within 3 days, or I will hire a lawyer to sue you for fraud. Watching them fall apart, I suddenly realized how fragile feelings are, unable to withstand even the slightest setback. The Prescott family's bankruptcy, once exposed, so, most debt collectors would find Nick and demand that Nick repay the money. Nick had nowhere to hide. After hitting a dead end, he still came to find me. That day, the wind and rain raged, and a storm swept in. Nick stood before me, drenched all over like a down-and-out puppy. "Jocelyn, please help me." I held an umbrella, looking at him expressionlessly. "Our families have been close for generations. You're the only one who can help me. You can't just stand by and watch me end up homeless, chased with nowhere to turn. Can you?" I recalled what Nick had said back then. Even paying him double for these words, I'd still feel cheated. He was the one who fled first, not me. "Sorry, I can't make the decision. You know, I'm just the Taylor family's child. My parents handle all the group's affairs, and if they're unwilling to help, there's nothing I can do." Nick stood frozen in place. He covered his face in agony, choking back sobs as he said, "After all these years of our bond, can you really bear to see me come to this?" His eyes flickered, and he grabbed my hand excitedly. "Jocelyn, I'll marry you. If we get married, will you be willing to help me then? Haven't you always wanted me to marry you? I've been regretting it all this time. Jocelyn, will you marry me now?" I scoffed and impatiently shook him off. "All of this is your own doing. What does it have to do with me? Do you think I have nothing better to do? Must I find a man to marry, now that something's happened? You thought of me when you were carefree and happy. You didn't even have me in your eyes." Seeing my attitude, Nick thought I was blaming him for getting together with Ivy. He explained in a low voice, "I've already broken up with Ivy. She can't pay back the money she owes me, so I sued her. Now she's facing a lawsuit, and if she can't repay it, she'll go to jail. I don't want to know about his affairs with Ivy. I can't be with you anymore." Before leaving, I suddenly thought of one thing. "I forgot to tell you. Your parents are back." As soon as these words were spoken, Nick immediately lit up. He couldn't hide the pleasant surprise in his expression, seeing him like this. I couldn't help but add, "He was caught and brought back. If you want to see them, you'll probably have to go to prison. They're locked up now, so you'd better pay back the debts they left behind." This is Nick's retribution. No one's money comes from thin air, it's all earned bit by bit. Since the money has been paid to compensate, it should be properly repaid. Nick turned pale, the last bit of hope in his heart completely shattered. His lips trembled, and for a long time, he couldn't speak. Clearly, he was struck to the point of collapse. Nick stood downstairs all night. He thought this would win my sympathy and pity. I will soon be going abroad to study and will never see Nick again. The last time I saw Nick was the night before I left the country. When I saw Nick, I was taken aback. I almost didn't recognize him. Nick had become noticeably thinner. He was being scolded by a customer for a late food delivery order. The usually arrogant Nick could only lower his head and endure the harsh words. He said nothing, as if life had worn away his temper. But even if he did this for a lifetime, he still wouldn't be able to pay it back. A huge debt is enough to crush a person. Ivy and her boyfriend were imprisoned as fraudsters. They only need to do labor reform in prison, while Nick outside is tormented day and night by debt collectors. Occasionally getting beaten up is normal, living a life exposed to the elements, which will eventually break a person's spirit. However, these are the consequences he must bear. As for me, I have more important things to do than dwell on emotions. After going abroad, I focused on my studies and achieved success in my major at school. After graduating, I spent 2 years abroad, where I achieved personal growth through learning and was able to secure a job offer back home based on my abilities, successfully joining a listed company to continue honing my skills. After all, I don't want to let the Taylor family's business slip through my hands. My life has just begun, and everything is turning around.